Hey everybody, I hope you're having yourself a great day. We just finished RealAg Radio. Great show today. Peter Johnson joined us as well as Jeremy Boychin from Alberta Wheat and Barley Commissions. And it was a great show. It was lots of fun. We talked about a lot of different topics, really agronomic issues that our people are faced with across the country. And so, I appreciate you tuning in here to the after show. This is something I want to do for a while, and something to kind of have a little bit more fun. Sometimes we don't get to everything on the show. Sometimes I feel like we kind of leave things sort of like, oh, we're done, the hour's over, and we got to go. And so this is an opportunity for us to maybe have a little bit of a further chat. You can participate, ask some questions. I'm hoping the plan is here as we try to build this out a little bit and maybe continue it, is to try to have things like guests, and maybe the guests stay with us. Maybe we have new guests come in. I'm maybe going to have one of the members of the RealAg content team join us tomorrow to talk about a couple big issues, because tomorrow on the show we got a great one. We're going to talk about diesel prices, which is going to be good. And we also got somebody coming in, Scott from WeatherLogics, as well. What we kind of heard today on the show from Jeremy Boychin and Peter Wheat Pete Johnson is that we have really, really dramatic differences across the country when it comes to conditions that farmers are facing here in early May. If you want to provide some perspective on your conditions that you're facing out there, whether you're rolling through the field or you are parked kind of in your shop just waiting for it to dry up a little bit, you can enter your comment in the box whether you're watching on YouTube or Twitter here. You look at Manitoba, you look at Eastern Canada, really waiting for it to warm up, essentially, is kind of what they've been faced with. Moisture seems pretty good. And, it's funny how Manitoba, you think a year ago how dry it was, and what it's looking like here on the first week of May, totally opposite situations. You couldn't really get any different. And we've moved into a situation where more and more people talking about, well, man, when am I going to be able to get started? Am I getting late already? Is it too late? Well, that seems to be a little bit of a stretch. I think we would all probably agree on that, but definitely not getting it started as early as you want to. And I mentioned on the show today that I was hearing a lot from producers in Manitoba that they were intending to push the seeding of canola back. That they were going to do that because they wanted to get past this frost and flea beetle issue they've been in, where you seed the canola early, gets out of the ground, it still really hasn't warmed up. Maybe you get a bit of a light frost a couple times, and you give the flea beetles more opportunity to really feast on that canola crop. Well, that's kind of out the window at this point, because at the time, and probably some of these areas in Manitoba dry up, we're going to be in that what you probably would have started and got going anyway. So the question is, in more so in Manitoba, is going to be, hey, what do I start with? Maybe I change the order of what I'm going to seed on top of maybe the crop mix changes as well. I got a comment here from a Canadian Cowman who is out on the West Coast. Cloudy with showers never seem to end. Waiting for weather window to cut winter wheat and ryegrass cover crop for silage. Fingers crossed for next week in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia. So waiting for some heat, it sounds like, there for sure out on the West Coast. And great to hear from you, because we don't hear from the West Coast enough. And there's an intense amount of farming that happens in that Fraser Valley, and also the price of land. Whew. That's something to think about as well. For provinces like Alberta, in the south, very, very dry as you move north. As Jeremy Boychin said today, conditions, I guess, get somewhat better from a moisture perspective as you move south of Calgary, north of Calgary, into that Red Deer region. I was in Camrose a couple weeks ago. It looked pretty good to me. I really don't have a handle on what the Peace looks like and what situation they're in. Of course, the Peace is a rather large area. We're talking about more arable acres than all of Manitoba. So, but I'm not really sure. So if you have anybody watching that's from the Peace River region, it'd be nice to hear from you in terms of what your conditions look like. Saskatchewan is kind of the middle of that sandwich, right? It's dry in parts of Alberta. It's okay in northern Alberta, in the central part of the province, and then Manitoba is really wet at this point. And Saskatchewan's kind of a little bit of both. The southern part, or the southwestern part of the province, extremely dry. We got a lot of grassland, some pasture in really, really tough shape. And then as you move north, we've been hearing from farmers in the Farmer Rapid Fire, still quite a bit of snow around. Whether that's, I'm thinking going back like 3 weeks, still like 2 feet of snow. I remember we had Chris Marley on from Tisdale, and he was saying like 2 feet in the flats. So there's going to be an opportunity if we get the heat for some people in Saskatchewan to have one heck of a crop. It would appear so, at least in the early days here of the 2022 planting season. Out east, it's a situation where I don't think the worry is really about moisture. The worry is about, hey, when is the soil going to be fit? When is it going to warm up? When can we really get rolling here? Because it's kind of stalled out. And Pete had mentioned on the radio show today, it's a little bit like 2019. A little bit like 2019 in the sense that we were late. We got delayed, and we're not late yet, but you know what I mean. We're delayed on that optimum start that we wish we could have had or would like to have. So that's kind of the tail of the tape, so to speak, when it comes to that. Another thing we talked about on the show today with Wheat Pete is that there was a lot of talk about crop protection products and the supply of those crop protection products. And would you be able to get what you need? And it seems, and I'm not saying we're okay and it's ideal, but it seems like the temperature has dropped a little bit on that one. I'm not getting as many emails from you on the supply of crop protection products. Hey, I can't get this. My retailer said he would have it, can't get it. That seems to have lowered. And so I don't know if I'm not sure. It's not the worst case scenario, I think, is where we can say fairly confidently here at this point on the supply of those products, but we got a long ways to go. And I know many of you, because of the awareness, we've been talking about this all winter. Many of you have been on it, trying to make sure that you took care of stuff. You aligned yourself with a retailer or a number of retailers to make sure you had the product. I've been very curious about sort of double dipping, double ordering of stuff. I wonder if that frees up inventory. Maybe you're going to use product A and you booked it over here at this retail, you booked it over there at that retail, and once you got it at one of them, maybe you canceled the other order. I from my time in the seed business, I know that can be a practice when there's talk of a shortage. So obviously that's something to watch out for. I do wonder if that's freed up a little bit of supply. So those are things that are kind of on our mind. Fertilizer supply, we didn't talk about it on the show today. That is another one that it's been a little bit difficult to get our heads wrapped around. We know there's a lot more fertilizer on farm in Western Canada compared to out east. We are hearing more and more about fertilizer issues in Eastern Canada. We've got a big survey. RealAg Studies, our market research arm here at Real Agriculture, has got a survey out to some farmers in Ontario, trying to get another read on what is the update to this situation. But out west, once again, it's kind of calmed down a little bit. The temperature has dropped on how big of an issue that is. It doesn't mean there's not issues out there, but what it does mean, we're not in that catastrophic sort of situation like we were, maybe we thought we could be going back there to November, December, and January, and things like that. So I think the biggest concern continues to be, and it is a smaller pocket, but it's an important pocket, is that Palliser Triangle, or the bulk of that Palliser Triangle, that is just under extreme drought. And it's got to be wearing on many of you. And I see there's a lot of drills rolling through the field, trying to get that crop in. It's going to be long seeded in parts of the Palliser Triangle before places like Manitoba or even northern Saskatchewan even really move a wheel. So that is something that we can watch for. But as Jeremy Boychin from Alberta Wheat and Barley Commission said on the show, this is kind of how it always is. There's big differences across the country. The question is, does the event happen that needs to happen to kind of even things out, right? So does Manitoba get the heat? Does Alberta get the rain it needs, or southern Alberta and southern Saskatchewan get that rain they need to kind of smooth this out a little bit? Of course, timing is everything when it comes to moisture. no rain from now till August won't really, that August rain won't help whatsoever when it comes to this sort of stuff. So be really interesting to know how you, the audience, are sitting on some of these things as you are in the field or about to enter the field, waiting for that soil to be fit, and how you define it is different for everybody. But this is kind of the go time. This is where the energy starts to build for sure when you think about the planting and seeding season, is people want to get started. And especially in things like row crops and broadacre farming. This is, vegetables and things are something, horticulture, totally, entirely different. But when it comes to row crops and broadacre farming, once that calendar ticks into May, right? April, like last week, you're like, it's April. Now you're like, it's May. It feels like it's a little bit more go time. And that's where it starts to play on people a little bit, and not panic setting in, but just a little bit of like, okay, like, we could use some heat. We could maybe use some rain. We could, like it to dry up a little bit depending on where you are. Once we get to May, this is where people start to get, now we're at a warm up, right? We've done batting practice. Now we're ready to play. We want to play the first inning and kind of get this game rolling. And Mother Nature in many parts of the country has really not cooperated, because the people that are going are waiting for other things to happen, like rainfall. People that haven't started, they're waiting for the heat. Mother Nature's got to cooperate there. Peter W.P. Johnson said it today on the show himself. Mother Nature is not being that motherly. She needs to be more TLC, more caring. She needs to follow through on some of these things. She just can't say no all the time, right? You get in the routine where you're telling your kids no all the time. That's what Mother Nature is doing to us right now, and we want her to cooperate and allow us to grow a big crop, at least an average crop in many parts of the country, because the markets are so strong. And people want to be able to take advantage of that. And depending on where you are, like if you're in Ontario, you're going to get the crop in. Weather will reasonably cooperate, I think. You're probably a little more confident in your forward booking, okay? We've been hearing this on the Farmer Rapid Fire on Thursday shows a lot. You're a little bit more confident in that booking. If you were burned last year on grain contracts, you're not comfortable with options, things like that, you probably haven't done anything. And there's a lot of farmers we have talked to in the Farmer Rapid Fire on the Thursday RealAg Radio show that will say, hey, I'm cautious. I'm not going to get super aggressive. And I got burned last year, and I'm not going to do it again. I learned my lesson. You got to learn from your mistakes, and I'm not making that mistake again. So depending on where you are, it really impacts how aggressively you've probably marketed. And there's money to be made, even with the rise in input prices and all things like that. There's money to be made if you can you can squeak out some sort of an average crop. So, okay, tomorrow on RealAg Radio, on Rural Radio 147, 4:30 Eastern, 2:30 Mountain, we are going to have a couple conversations that are of great interest to you. One, we're going to talk to Scott Keller from WeatherLogix, and we're going to get a forecast for Western Canada, for Eastern Canada. We're also going to hear tomorrow from Patrick DeHaan from Gas Buddy. We're going to talk about diesel fuel prices and what that means for you. Where there's a lot of concerns about different regions of North America when it comes to the price of diesel fuel. I know you've probably seen it. When the fuel truck is stopped to fill up. That was a question we had a couple weeks, it's probably a couple months ago now, on the Farmer Rapid Fire on the Thursday show, was talking about how much on-farm fuel storage do you have? And once again, it's a real mixed bag. How often do you pre-buy your fuel? How do you manage all that? Do you take out some risk management contracts on your fuel purchases? It's a real mixed bag across the country. Some people just say, hey, when we're out of fuel, we order it. And we're buying year round. Some people, they buy once for the entire year. That's a little bit stressful based on where prices have gone here. And diesel's gotten very, very expensive for sure. There's some sticker shock when it comes to diesel fuel. And like we said on RealAg Radio today, farmers need to burn some diesel fuel because we got to get this crop in. Diesel fuel is kind of a requirement. You can't back off on diesel fuel. You can back off on your fertilizer prices or your fertilizer purchases because of the prices if you want to. Hard to back off on the diesel fuel. Unless you're going to not do a second sprayer pass, but you're not. That's like how much diesel fuel you're really cutting. Your diesel fuel usage is your diesel fuel usage. And we're going to talk to Patrick DeHaan tomorrow from Gas Buddy. We also may have the Minister of Agriculture and from AFC, Minister Marie-Claude Bibeau will potentially be on the show. There's an FPT meeting today. One in prep for the July meeting that's coming up in the summer that we'll do with the new Canadian Ag Policy Framework. So we're hoping to also potentially have her on the show tomorrow as well. Okay, so I'm going to end it there, and we're going to try to continue to have these after shows. We're going to bring in some guests, get your comments, your feedback, and really, really do appreciate it. We got a comment there from Kevin. Really do appreciate it, and him tuning in as he always does in The Agronomist. Speaking of The Agronomist, tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Mountain, too many times in my head. Lindsay Smith, your host, and she will, of course, cover many, many cool things when it comes to agronomy. We've got experts from across the country and so a pretty elite, informed audience as well will also be tuning in as they always do. The live chat that happens on YouTube watching is really quite fantastic. So really do appreciate everybody that tunes in. You can get CCA credits as well. Thanks, everybody, for getting real and getting connected with the RealAg Radio After Show. We'll see you right back here tomorrow after RealAg Radio. Cheers, everybody.